Holden, send Lowerhouse to save the house. Come on, the house!
Real significant game. We're going to have to take this to pieces. Rottenstall at Rottenstall. It's neck and neck. We've 59 points. They've 58. No, sorry, we've 63. They've 62. And it's worth mentioning here, this is from one of the spectators. Lowerhouse and Rottenstall had been like Elizabeth I and Mary Queen of Scots, rivals from afar who knew about each other's existence but who hadn't ever met. Unlike those illustrious monarchs who never did meet, there was always going to be a day of reckoning for the main rivals of 1982. You know, that's what happened. Lofty, can you remember the build-up to this game? It's in August. It's in 1982. Can you remember the build-up?
Well, Burnley Express built it up. They were the ones that really built it up into a bit of a nail biter. Just before the Thursday before the game, I was approached by two Ribblesdale League sides to become the pro, and I asked them to go away until after the season ended because I didn't want anything to disrupt. I had a word with Jack Hayes and told him about it, but he said just forget it and get on with it. Yeah. But that were about it. It weren't it was just a game again that we had to win, and it's a small ground. And with what we'd got, I fancied his chances of getting a decent total. But they batted first.
Yeah. Hot day, Brian, Alan. It was a hot day.
And it was just one of them things. I don't know what happened. You got us a few runs and we were
I'm going to say there were 2 run-outs, but it doesn't look like Stan was involved.
No, I was back in the tent by then.
No, there were certainly run-outs. Were it Phil Astin? Phil Astin.
Evans was
I ran myself out,
I remember rightly.
Well, 2 things I remember in the game. I remember my first class debut for Wellington. I dropped the highest catch I've ever. Well, I didn't drop it. I didn't touch it. In this game, I was at square leg, and I don't know who was bowling. And Franklin got under one. There was Miles in there, and I remember catching it at square leg, laying down on the ground, and it sort of hit me in the stomach. And then batting, I think we were doing it quite comfortably. And for some reason, I just had another bloody brain fade and run myself out. It was never as quick as I thought I was.
Yeah, just quickly go through the scorecard. Rottenstall batted, it's saying here, 27. It was reduced to 27 overs a side. Rottenstall, 143 for 8. Bushell got 3 wickets. Evan bowled 5 overs, Brom 10 overs, and Lofty 9 overs. And then we've opened the batting. Stan, Iggy, 12 for 1, 16 for 2, and then Evan and Phil have put on, a good stand of 60 odd. And then it looks like those 2 run-outs. Bush, you've got 17 going in at 5, and then it's 5, 3, 9, 0, 1, 4. That collapse. Was the pressure getting to you, lads? Were you bottling it?
Yeah.
Go on, Brom. That's interesting. So you think that it was getting to us?
Yeah. I felt that there was panic in the dressing room.
Yeah.
For the first time that season, I felt the pressure in the dressing room, and I think everybody who went out to bat, there was no calmness about the place at all.
Yeah, and the run-outs don't help, do they? If that is what's happening to the likes of Tripp and Bart and Dave Keeley and Rusty. They don't help when you have the run-outs, which is extremely unfortunate when you look at that game. But you've got to say, you look at the Rottenstall side, there's some players there who've won a lot of leagues. Brian Payne, John Swanee, Steve Ashworth.
Yeah, lots of experience,
Yeah, they are. There's some, and then you get into Brett Story, a good young player, and Beaumont, good players. So it's, we'll come on to this towards the end. Is that the game, do you think, Bush, that lost you that title, or do you think, I know we've talked about the 2 Todd games, but what was your outlook on that particular game?
Yeah, it was significant, that game, really, because we've been in front all season, haven't we?
Yeah.
And then for the first time, we're just slightly behind. And we knew we got to play them again at home.
Yeah.
So we knew that's going to be a big game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was significant, really, that game, I think.
Yeah, and it took them, following that victory, they're then 4 points in front of us.
Yeah.
And then we're going in towards the end of August. And we've absolutely battered Church there. When you look, to win in the early 80s, to win by, I think, 104 runs, it's fantastic and looks like a great batting performance there. 210 for 8 us, all spread out again. Phil 42, Evan 28, Stan 24, and Bush, you got 77 not out. Highest Lancashire League score up to that time, I believe.
Probably would be, yeah.
Yeah.
The match before Bush, you'd got your 100th Lancashire League wicket.
Did it?
Yeah. And then we bowl them out for 106. The opening partnership got 48, and then you've obviously gone right through them. Evan, you 24 for 6 to bash them. But it's interesting that Rishton beat Roppenstall on that same day. So we were back up. 67 points each, with probably 4 games to go. So it's back on. So Lofty, you've had this approach from the Ribblesdale League sides, which can't have, it does unsettle you a little bit. I appreciate you kept that to yourself. What was it like at practice and at training and the actual atmosphere around the ground in the build up to these, to September?
People thought we could do it. We thought at that particular time we might be able to do it. Everybody were sound in training and in playing, and it's a case of things like that get to you, not off the field, but on the field.
Yeah.
And everything seemed to be all right off the field. Nobody were really shouting from houses, we're going to win the league or anything like that. We just plodded on and saw what come along.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Can you remember Stan at that stage? Stan's gone for his 5th
dinner beans.
Disarano, Stan?
No, I'm still on cups of tea. I think in that particular game, against, just going to the Roppenstall game, in that particular game, the 2 run-outs came about because we did have to score runs. The overs were ticking by. And that was the first time I felt that there was pressure on us. And it was certainly, I actually felt the Burnley loss, I think it was the second to the end game of the season. I actually think that was the critical one.
I do.
But you can still see that we're playing some bloody good cricket and we're murdering teams.
Yeah.
We murdered Cong in an upcoming game. And we've talked about how much of a team we were. It was very rare that somebody scored a 70, but there were lots of 30s and 40s. There were lots of 3-fers. Evan had his 6-fers. It was a proper team, and I noticed that John Ormrod's played a couple of games. My memory may be wrong, but I don't remember Tripp playing a lot of games. I don't think he was a regular, but he's coming to the side. I noticed Rusty isn't playing in this game, but with a very tight squad. But we were a proper team. Nothing wrong with team spirit.
No, not at all.
Oh no, it was good, weren't it? Great atmosphere between lads, weren't it? We all stuck together, and we all contributed. And that was a good thing. That's why we made a team, because everybody contributed to some form of winning.
And I also don't
say small runs.
Sorry, Graham. I also don't remember us thinking, well, we're doing better than we've ever done. We'll settle for 3rd or 4th or runners up. We did take it one game at a time, but we were desperate to win the league. If you could imagine, we were in the cup final in 80, and we probably, we lost that in unfortunate circumstances, and we were fitted up a little bit, but probably that was a lack of experience. and probably a little bit of a lack of experience in this one. But like I said, there was no complacency, or at least little Lowerhouse, we're doing okay. We really wanted to win it. Really wanted to win it.
Good grief, yeah.
That's good that that spirit was still there. And again, we go back to this winning habit sort of thing. And it's easy to dissect seasons and games, many years after the event. But the following week we play Colne at home, 161. We get exactly as you've said, Stan. All the runs shared out. They've got Collis King. Evan gets in for 18, and they're 115 for 9. And we don't get that bonus point again. So that's similar to the Enfield game. Does that ring any bells with anyone as to not getting those bonus? I know it's easy to say now, but at the time, did we feel that, we were coming off with 4 points, but gutted because we'd not got the bonus point?
I think it depends on what time of game it was. Were it the last over that we took the 9th wicket? And this out to other. It depends on when the 9th wicket fell. Yeah,
I mean, it looks like we'd got it, quite late towards the end of the innings, and it's easy to look back on it in hindsight. But Rottenstall won that the game, the 23rd game.
Yeah, sorry, just on the subject of not getting signs all out.
Yeah,
but don't forget this is the era before bonus points. So sides were well versed in shutting up shop if they weren't going to win. They were well versed with the mentality. For instance, they're chasing 180, they 70 for 6 with 5 overs left. They just shut up shop.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen now because they're striving for bonus points, or they realise they're getting thrashed and they throw the wicket away.
Yeah.
That didn't happen in those days.
And they did, it wasn't just a malicious thing or a local derby where you would do it. Everyone would, if they would bat and continue to bat to deny those points. Yeah, you're right, Stan. So then
one thing I remember about the Colne game was the day before. This is the game where we played at Lowerhouse. Collis had got 175 this must have been a Sunday game. Collis had got and there was a hell of a crowd there for him to bat. Then when he got out, they sort of buggered off. Yeah, I've never forgotten that run out at Rottenstall. It's haunted me even till today.
Yeah. And we
pour yourself a stiff drink.
So with 3 games to go, Lowerhouse 71 points, Rottenstall 72, and we're moving into September. Nelson at home. Radford's still proing for them. He's great figures there, nearly 16 overs, 41 for 5. We get 112. I mean, was that a bit of a squeaky bum time? Because it's not the best score going. We don't know what the wicket was like. It was at home, and we bowled them all out for 94. Can you remember anything about that one, Bush?
Not really, no.
No.
I can't.
You got 2 wickets, 12 runs.
Yes, I always reckon that if Lowerhouse could get between 120 and 140 with a chance of winning.
Yeah.
With the bowling lineup right through the 80s, if that happened, we had a chance because we had such a good bowling lineup.
Yeah.
And I always fancied us chances.
Yes, so the beauty of Evan was that any left-arm bowler that takes it away from the bat, even today, amateur cricketers don't play that type of bowler comfortably. And of course, Evan was an international spin bowler doing that. It was a massive ace in the pack, in the pack. And certainly in terms of mopping up a tail end, I'm getting the pros out, but specifically mopping up the tail end, that was a real feature. I know there were a couple of occasions when we didn't do it, but generally speaking, if you look at these scores, for number 6 and 6 downwards, they're all single figures, week in, week out.
Yeah, it is, and that's what got us into that, the position we were in. And again, Evan, I think 2 games before this, you got the 500s run, so as much as you're disappointed with your batting, it's a fantastic performance. Oh, there's just one other point I wanted to mention. We talked about the games in August. Is there anything else happened in August 1982, Rog?
My first son was born.
That's right. Stephen Brom was born August 82, so a good year.
And seriously, I actually wanted to win the league for him.
Yeah.
Not me, but Lowerhouse, to win the
You
league.
said you couldn't middle it, Rog.
Hey.
We go on to the next to last game of the season, Burnley away. They won the toss and battered 113 for 8 off their 34 overs. Can anyone talk me through what that was about, what the wicket was like? And it seems a strange score.
It does. I can't remember the wicket. I remember thinking that was, we should be winning that, and well, we should, there's no dispute about that. But yeah, just 1 point on the games that we lost in this year. We lost 6 games. 5 of the games were chasing runs. We just weren't a good chasing side. We were a good defending side. I think that's quite significant, is that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we'll mention. Well, I've noticed that a lot of the times when it does say who's won the toss and Lofty has battered. Probably thinking the bowling is the strongest option, but to control the game, we were getting the runs, but to control the game with the 4 bowlers that we had, it was quite phenomenal. But 113 for 8 off 34. As you said, Brom, you've got to think we're going to win that. And then Stan, Robertson ended up with 6 wickets for not a lot. Whittaker bowled very tight by the looks of it. Can you remember that game? Was there a big crowd?
I can remember hooking Robertson and not middling it and getting caught on the boundary edge by Whittaker. Lofty will correct me on this one, or Graham will, Roger. I think this was the game where we were in a position to claim bad light. I think it went incredibly
right. Yeah.
I think it went incredibly gloomy. And perhaps a little bit naively, we didn't push it with the umpires. Primarily because we thought we could win anyway, because we weren't chasing a great score. But as it started to go wrong, we were ahead on run rate, and it went incredibly dark, and we pressed on. I may be confusing that with another game, but I think it's this one. Lofty will remember it because obviously as captain.
Lofty, yes.
When we played Burnley, could we claim light?
Yeah, we should have done.
Oh yeah.
We were above the run rate, and we didn't get it message from scorebox until an over after. And we're going to come off for bad light. We didn't get it till it didn't come down to me. Didn't message till over after, and we lost out. We run rate. Otherwise, we'd have won it. And that was
Burnley, weren't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the time I went in the bar, had a pint, went down back in the dressing room and sobbed my heart out.
And Rottenstall have won. They've got a bonus point. So we've finished 76 points and Rottenstall 81 with 1 game to go. Talk us through the build up to that. We realised that Rottenstall we've got to win the game and bowl Rottenstall out. The build up to that, was there much going on in the press, Lofty? Was there any communication with the league or what Rottenstall might do?
Well, the banter was declaring and things, denying us this, denying us that. But we booked an holiday to Prestatyn that Sunday. And I weren't expecting to be playing, to be honest. I thought we'd have won it, but Clifford, we went over on the Saturday, me and kids and whatever, and to Prestatyn, and Clifford waiting at his caravan. And he said, come on, he said, I'll take you home and get your stuff. You're playing? I said, yeah, all right. So he was waiting for me over in Prestatyn. He took me all the way home. We'd only just arrived at Prestatyn. He took me to his house. I stopped overnight at his house. It's single bed. And then he took me to the game. after the game, he run way all the way back to Preston and then came back home. That was Clifford.
Oh, good on him. Good on him. So we've got, Rottenstall. It says here, toss not known, but I believe they won the toss. Is that right, Lofty?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Brian Payne's won the toss and they've battered. And I'll throw it out there to everyone. 50 for 6 off 34 overs. Clearly not even trying to put a total on, just stopping us getting the bonus point. Is that cricket?
They shut up shop, Jez, when they lost early wickets. They lost Payne, Swanee, Pro, 24 for 5.
We opened up with Evan.
17 overs, 5 for 20, Evan. Incredible. They panicked, but the run-up during the week was huge. There were pen picks of the Lowerhouse team in the Burnley Express. All the talk was, would Brian Payne deny us the bonus points by declaring? And Brian wouldn't disclose it. Jez and I have talked to him subsequently, and he has said that he would never have dreamt of declaring, but he wasn't going to tell anybody that. And we take him at face value, of course. Decent sort is Brian. But that was all of the talk. And we had it in the back of our minds that they were quite, they could well have done that. And the league changed the rules that back end to say that if you declared, you were considered all out. That would have denied us. But if I remember rightly, it had thrown it down all week, and that day was a real steamy, hot day. And it was a bit of a sweaty pitch. And we bowled magnificently. And obviously, once they weren't all out, it was a bit of a dead rubber.
But Evans' figures that day are absolutely remarkable. 17 overs, 9 maidens, 5 for 20.
Yeah.
They didn't play a shot in anger, though, did they?
No, they didn't. No, but
not after they lost those wickets.
But still, to get.
I remember, was there a left-hand batsman there?
They didn't come to play cricket. They just come to obviously win league, which they did.
Yeah, I think Brian Terry was a left-handed bat.
And I was struggling to bowl to him. I couldn't,
Were it Terry that would keep it holding us up? There were one of them holding us
up. Glenn Barlow batted a
a
long time for 10.
I don't know what you can do in that situation, though.
But there is a strange one. Can I just mention one thing, though?
Yeah.
Iggy stumped somebody that game. So what was Phil Pickle doing?
Oh. I've no idea.
Oh, he did. You're right.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he certainly didn't run down the wicket, Rog.
No, you wouldn't think so, would you? But it just seems a strange one that somebody gets stumped in a game like that.
Yeah.
When they weren't playing any shots at all.
I mean, if you look at that, they're 40 for 6. It'd be difficult to tell what over that happened in, wouldn't it? But I'll bet they were 40 for 6, and I'll bet there were 10 overs left easy.
Well, I know we struggled with latter overs. Yeah, we couldn't, because we couldn't get a breakthrough anywhere.
Yeah.
No catches come up, no nothing. It was,
they just weren't playing any shots, were they?
No.
Evan, you bowled 17 overs. Can you remember what you were thinking or what you were trying to do? Because I'd have no idea of where I would start if.
Well, I think it's the lads have said we got through we got wickets initially, then they blocked it. And I just got this vision of trying to bowl to a left-hander, and I to be honest, at times I got a bit of a thing in my mind about bowling to left-handers that they would just block the poop out of it, and I could never get them out. And I vaguely remember trying to bowl some leggies, the old wrist spinners. But no, they just dropped anchor, and there was nothing we could do. And I remember when we came off the field, we were all pretty disappointed. And Lofty said, let's just knock the runs off and have a beer, which is sort of what happened.
There was a huge crowd on. As a spectacle, it was a non-event.
Yeah, disappointing, weren't it, really?
It was exciting for our supporters and the neutrals when we were taking wickets. But when they dropped anchor, it was appalling, really.
The wicket didn't help either, because it was it were a bit stodgy. It didn't help you to get it through a little.
It was a great wicket for dropping anchor on.
Yeah.
The ball turned and seemed slowly.
Obviously, I was very young at this. Not young, I wasn't born.
very, very, very.
That is young, Joel. That's
This
very young.
absolutely. But do you know, this makes me profoundly sad listening to it, because it's because you've got all these people, Jez and Gary, that were involved in it and clearly really cared about playing cricket and playing for Lowerhouse, and they were doing the very best to win the league for the first time, and they didn't quite get there, and it makes me a bit sad.
Sad as us.
No, I appreciate that, Rog.
All I can say, Joe, and because we don't like Sanders on this podcast,
No.
the most, what will various players within the team, the first team, but also within the club learn from that. A fantastic pro with some great amateurs. You learn from it, and that, as much as Lofty mentioned about Colin Milburn and the spectators, that's where that started coming on. That was the start of our run, 1980. Very well, 1982. All right, the 80s did get tough a bit, but myself and Gary and with Phil and Stan's support brought us through to where we are now, where we pass it on to you.
Yeah. Can you imagine if we'd have won the league? I think that'd be amazing.
Thank you to our 4 sponsors for supporting our podcast: Johnny Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, Alexander Grace Law, Jez and Lisa's Spoonful of Sweets, and SPE Furnishings. Links to their websites are available in the show notes and on our website. Don't forget to subscribe to get all the latest episodes as soon as they're released.
Still gleaming, years without a cup, never stopped us dreaming.
83, 84, 85 were quite successful. 83, 84 were successful.
Yeah.
85 wasn't. That was
Sub-pro for Curtie in the next year when he was in the World Cup.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Against Rottenstall, weren't it?
Yeah.
That's another tale, is that one?
He arrived at Lowerhouse with a servant.
Yeah.
Evan, things are flooding back, or trickling back, should I say. Am I right in thinking, or would this be accurate, that neither yourself nor Wendy would have seen a terraced house before? Have I got that?
We hadn't, no.
Because I seem to remember Wendy having been quartered. I think he came back from the airport in the dark. And legend has it that Wendy remarked, "What are all these small boxes with lights on?" Lights in, like there was some type of magic lantern. And Clifford to say the terraced houses.
You used to come to Lowerhouse for a shower, didn't you, from Sabden? You used to shower.
Oh, God, that must have been desperate.
Well, no, that's the other thing. I've forgotten that. Poor old Tom, we didn't have a shower or a bath in our cottage, and we were allowed to go next door twice a week, and he'd run a bath, and it would have 4 inches of water in it, and Wendy would go first, and then I'd have a bath after that. Then the rest of the week we'd go down to the clubhouse and have a shower, but you had those guys that were doing PD, or they were painting, or the old boys that were misbehaving, and the cops would send them in there to do their clean the clubhouse.
Oh, yeah, community service.
Community. Yeah.
So,
welcome to Law.
Showering with cockroaches.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I think, what we've gone through there, and I know what you're saying, Joe Martin, you're always a little bit glass half empty, but it's, there's a fantastic side there. The season was phenomenal, and people remember that forever. So if we'll just have a run round of anyone who's got anything else that they want to talk about around the season, and then we'll have a further run round just to see if there's any old stories or bit of memories that people want to bring into us. So Gary, I'll go to you first about the season. How do you think? What, looking back on it and the way we've talked about it, have you any observations?
Yeah, just following on from what George said there, but I think I remember through the 90s and all tales in the dressing room and stuff like that. More often than not, there would be some memory of 82, and Evan's performances and the effect he had, and like I say, as a professional coming into what Lofty was terming as a well-balanced side at that time, and as a player then, I mean, you know, we didn't get close to a trophy really until Corey's sort of year, but only at that point could you imagine what it would have been, what it must have been like in that side then. We were a far better side than we were there, you know, in terms of like top to bottom amateur ranks. And that must have been special to go through all that season, even though it finished like it did. And that's probably the lasting memory for a lot of people. I think what everybody achieved over that season, and to have been part of that, and just listening to the tales and the reminiscing tonight, must have been something special. And certainly at a club that had never even had a sniff of anything like a championship. So, you know, fair play.
Here, and to get so close, it was a great achievement, and it's glad that we're capturing it like we are now, and people can listen, you know, and enjoy what we're talking about. Joe Martin, what's your final? And don't be negative. Don't talk about how you're not going to sleep tonight. What's your thoughts about that season?
It wasn't negative. It was the kind of disappointment I felt for everybody. That was the thing, because I get the sense that everyone really cared, and that's what I really liked. But also, I just think it was a real achievement for the club to get into that position. It was amazing, I think.
We should look at it. So, Brom, what about you? Just summing up the 82 season, the way we've talked about it, and your final thoughts on it.
I've got to say, my abiding memory is the Rottenstall game. It just haunts me. That game. When I look back, you know, we can all have thoughts on which game it was that we could have done better. You know, and Paul Hargreaves has mentioned, you know, if Evan had bowled more. Yeah, I get all that. But the abiding memory is that Rottenstall game. And I think that's where nerves actually crept in. Yeah.
No, good point. Good point. And people talk about Bottle or whether Evan should have bowled more or it really doesn't matter now. I think, as people have mentioned, 100% was given, and we couldn't ask for any more, whether we're players, spectators, or you know, people involved in the club. Stan, what's your thoughts around the discussion?
He's asleep.
I think we quickly got over the fact that we didn't win the league, because we soon realised that we'd had a tremendous season, and it was a tremendous season, not only results wise, but the team spirit was one of the finest I ever played in, and I've ever seen subsequently, with some great characters, some funny characters, some tough characters. Evan was an absolute gentleman, and with the honour of playing with a great cricketer. It was, apart from the final result, if you will, it was a season of great joy, because we hadn't been a very good team, and we showed we could play. And I actually think we could have gone on to win the league the following year if Bush hadn't have left. Obviously, Bush was a tremendous player, and he joined the professional ranks. That certainly wasn't meant as a criticism, Graham, but we just missed out on a very, very good player.
Good observation, Stan, and like we said, we've done that on other podcasts. You know, it is, but the people move on, they progress. So, Bush, your thoughts around 82 and how this, you know, how we've summarised it. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, I just felt that the whole team and everybody who came into that team contributed in some way. The atmospheres were fantastic, really. Yeah. Not just for the players, but also for the wives and girlfriends. They all got involved, which is a bit unusual, really.
Yeah.
But it was just that bond between everybody. And I thought that was tremendous, because I played down Burnley for quite a few years, and it weren't like that. The atmosphere at Lowerhouse was totally different, and it was a pleasure to play.
Yeah.
And Evan, obviously,
make sure you get that in. Make sure you get that in, Jez. We can start off with that and finish with it.
Bush, I really appreciate, you know, your comments there. We've talked lots and lots about your career at Burnley and then coming to Lowerhouse, but I think a lot of what you've just said there is down to the bloke on your right for getting that atmosphere the way it was. And I think we've tried to keep that going, and long may it continue. So, Lofty, before we go back to the professional, your summary and abiding memories of how we've managed to go through each game and around the 82 season, please.
My overall thoughts about it: tremendous professional and a gentleman.
Here.
And my biggest regret was Burnley, and that just gazumped my season, really.
Yeah.
That one game.
Yeah.
Didn't it?
Yeah, it did. But we've got to remember that, what a fantastic season it was and how we've progressed from there. Yeah, it's going to be with you forever, Lofty. But I've got to say, you brought that for us. And we're really grateful for you coming on this podcast, and Bush for sorting out to get you on it. So, we really appreciate it. Thanks very much. Evan, can you sum up the your feelings? You've come to this strange.
Probably one of the two best sides I've ever played, and as the guys have said, it was a team without anyone really sort of standing out above the other. Everyone contributed at some stage during the year. I remember my abiding memory is Lofty had a huge pair of mitts on him. He very rarely missed anything and that he got his hands to. But fielding practice, I remember Tripp catching the ball behind his back when we hit the high catches out. It was just a lovely place to be a part of, and it happened for me at the right time in my life, and I was eternally grateful and never forgotten it.
And you were, of course, the leading bowler in the league at the end of the season, Evan. I was feeling miserly. You're the top bowling average in the league.
Runs as well, Evan. It's a fantastic achievement and contributed massively to what we did achieve throughout that season. Well, there's nothing else to talk about the 82 season. I know you guys have not seen each other for nearly 40 years. If you want to talk about any stories, if you want to, Stan, have you anything that you can...
Sorry, Jez, you mentioned there about Alan's leadership, and I'd second that. A proper leader. It helps if you're 6'4" and everybody's frightened stiff of you. But he led from the front. And when Evan said there, he had a big pair. I didn't realise he was going to say mitts. I thought he was going to refer to his danglers, because as you know, we were a team full of high-spirited lads, and childishness was prevalent, and of course, ribaldry and a bit of rudeness never went amiss. I mean, Lofty did have a massive. We used to call it his pump bag. At Haslingden, in one of his Churchillian pep talks, he threatened to throw us off the balcony if we didn't do certain things, and you believed him. And at the end of this, and he said, and when we're in that field, he said, you stop everything. If you have to, you stop it with your bollocks. At which point Dave Keeley said, if we had a pair of bollocks like yours, Alan, we'd have no problem stopping anything.
Brilliant. So that's done. Thank you very much.
Put that one in.
Nowadays, we left and I could play white ball cricket with it.
Right. Anything else from anyone else?
I've just mentioned Dave Keeley there.
Yeah.
Well, I were in hospital the other week. I looked up on the board opposite, the bed opposite, there's a board, a whiteboard with name David Keeley on it. And I thought, it can only be one David Keeley. Surely it can't, it must be him. Anyway, they wheel him in. I said, all right, Dave, how are you? He said, how am I? I went down for a knee operation, a replacement, and all they've done is clean it. He said, surgeon won't touch it. I went, oh my God. Anyway, all night, 12 o'clock before we got to sleep that night, we just telling jokes and all. It was best crack I've ever in my life, even though I were in pain. But it was a good crack.
Just going back to Lowerhouse not winning out, the Martini Trophy in 80. We played on the Sunday, and East Lancs got a decent score, but we were confident of beating it. We Arm and Office Pro. We went back the following week to play, and the pitch was about 3 inches of grass on it. There were no outfield cut. It were there were water on it, everything. And because it was Lowerhouse, if it had been Burnley or anybody else, I went into committee room that day and I spoke to the representatives of the league and I said, I'm going home. I said, I'm not playing this match. And they said, I'm sorry, what did you say? I said, we're going home. I'm taking my players home. You can't do that. There'll be repercussions for Lowerhouse forever. And I hadn't got anybody to back me up. There were no committee men there at the time. Clifford were in his car downstairs. But that's how Lowerhouse were treated later on, earlier on in my career there. They just, if it had been Burnley, they'd have done something about the wicket. John Hartley were brilliant that day. But Lowerhouse has always been, until now, scoffed at it.
Cinderella.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has. It was very difficult, and it made it even harder for you guys. Certainly after the 60s and 70s and going through there. But thankfully, hopefully, that's changed for good now. Before we clear up and I go back to Evan for the final comments. Anything else, Gary?
No. Saying that we were flicking through the games. Obviously, we did all the league games, but there's one Martini game, trophy game. I was just looking at, and it was odd one. I think it was Rishton. Is it Rishton at home? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
We batted second, chasing 2-2-3. And Iggy and Stan open up. Iggy's out in second over, and then Evans in at 3, Phil's in at 4. But both those guys run out. I just wondered if Evan had any recollection of any stories of running between the wickets with Mr. Heaton.
I mean, I'm first put my hand up and say I wasn't world class, but I don't remember. If there was a run out, it was probably my fault.
Chivalrous.
No. Always Stan.
Well, books the trend, doesn't it?
Unlikely, Evan.
Thank you for that, Evan. I'm eternally grateful. As you can see, it is a conspiracy against me. Can I point out that the same 2 people were run out at Rottenstall and I was already in the pavilion?
Yeah, and I think I ran myself out at Ramsbottom too. I just have a feeling.
Yeah, that was
like batting.
Bit of a thump that, wasn't it?
Yeah, but other than that, Jason, no, it's been a great listen and good to see everybody catching up on that season.
Yeah, brilliant. Joe Martin?
No, I think that's been great. Evan's still held in such high regard at the cricket club. It's really fantastic. And when I speak to people when we're getting new pros or, signing spinners or whatever, it's always a question as whether they're going to be as good as him. And or is it do you ever come over to England or is it a rare occurrence now?
No, I haven't been across. No, not for a long time.
Right.
No, if I had been, I'd have been up there to see you.
Well, everyone still really likes you, so there you go.
You're always welcome, Evan. Tom's still got that cottage in Sabden.
With no bath or shower.
I think what you've done with the club is fantastic in the last 10 or 15 years, Stan, what you've done. And, I follow the games as much as I can, the streaming of the odd game. I wake up in the night to find out if the Burnley football team's won I flick across to Lowerhouse to see what's happening. And I've seen the odd photo from high, and I think it's looking magnificent. The net you've got, the way, it's fantastic. It's
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks, Evan. Roger, final part of the shot from you.
I've really enjoyed this podcast. It's been difficult, really, going through this season because it hurts so much. But there have been some positives at the end of it. So
there is always.
We're all still alive.
Yeah, we're all
still shilling in the meter, Roger, will you?
Go on, Stan.
That's the other thing we had at that cottage. We had a bloody meter. We had to put 50p coins on it.
Roger looks like a whistleblower on the BBC. He just needs a computerized voice.
Actor's voice.
Alexa.
Yeah.
The battery's running down, and I'm not close to a plug, so I might be saying goodbye sooner than you think.
And final point from yourself.
And I'd just like to thank you, Jess, for organising this and for everybody for coming on. And Evan, it's been absolutely wonderful to see you.
It has.
We must. I'm not a great one for Facebook, primarily because I haven't got time. But this has been. We must try and keep in touch. This has been
Absolutely, fantastic,
an absolute pleasure. And you look so well.
Great to see you all again.
You really do. You really do.
Bush Lofter, you two, do you want to just?
It's been great.
Nice.
It's been great. It's all this time since I've seen Evan. But I know my lad keeps tabs with you, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he keeps reminding me, and it's good to see you. It always has been.
Good.
Yeah.
So you look after yourself. Yeah. And take care.
Right.
Final words with yourself, Evan, before I close the podcast.
Oh no, I'd just like to wish you all the best for the coming season. Hope Burnley Football Club can get up a couple of places in the league. And it's been an absolute thrill. I've been looking forward to it for a long time to see you guys again and hear your voices and the stories. And I mean the Cliff used to take his teeth out at different stages, and I just have this vague bloody recollection of that.
Well, he did, Evan, because the first time he ever met you, he took them out and put them on the table. And whilst he was still eating, they were talking.
Brilliant. What a good note to end the podcast on. So thanks ever so much, Evan. Thanks to Lofty, especially to you for coming on there. I know
You're welcome.
A last minute thing. Bush for sorting that out for us. Thanks, Brom. Thanks, Stan. And the two co-hosts. Thanks very much, Joe. Thanks very much, Gary. So don't forget, subscribe to the podcast. You'll get them a day or two early. But if you don't, like it, friend it, Twitter it, whatever else you can do to it. And thanks, everyone, for listening to this podcast.
Holden, send more house to save the house.